My name is Paul Horn. I'm a California probate attorney. Okay. So the talk of the town in the real estate industry is NAR post settlement. Now that NAR settlement has been sort of ironed out, the effective date is August 17th. What are the new forms? How does it affect your transaction as a seller, agent, as a listing agent, or the buyer's agent? How does it affect your compensation? So I'm going to share with you the new CAR form. So for example, we're going to go over the various new CAR form. So for example, you see on the screen is the new residential listing agreement. Same thing, we also have a new purchase agreement as well too. We'll go over all that together. What we're gonna do is this: we will kind of walk through. You're the listing agent. What are the new forms? I'm a probate attorney, so I'm gonna kind of, if you have a probate listing, so this presentation, as far as the form goes, I'm gonna sprinkle in some probate stuff, a probate listing, but it also, it's the same for your standard transaction, okay? All right, so let's do this. Let's get started. So you are the listing agent. You got to use the new CAR form. If you look at the screen, the revised date is July 24th, July 2024. Okay, so it's, when you use your zip form, right, it's a 19-page bundle. The first 2 pages is disclosure. You've seen it before. You put in your client's name. If you're handling a probate estate, let's say mom died. Let's say her name is Rhonda Burnett. That's mom. Mom died, and you're in a probate situation. And the son is your client. The son is the personal representative. So on this 19-page bundle, the revised form, you put in your seller. So your seller is the son, Christopher Sitzler, personal representative of the estate of Rhonda Burnett. If you're not in probate, just a standard transaction, you just put in your seller right there, right? Same thing you've seen before, nothing new there. Now, when we get to the residential listing agreement that you see on the screen, this is brand new. It just dropped, probably not more than 2 weeks ago, July 2024. Okay, yeah, so there, exclusive right to sell, you're gonna put in, your seller's name. So standard transaction, your client, probate, it would be, for example, the son. His mom died, so the son, for example, Christopher Sitzler, personal representative of the estate of Rhonda Burnett, for example, your seller, right? Okay. And then what's important is this. What's important is you got to put in your listing period. So it cannot exceed 24 months. As you see on the screen, it cannot exceed 24 months. If you're in a probate scenario, probate listing, it cannot be more than 90 days per probate code 10150. Okay, so standard transaction not to exceed 2 years, probate not to exceed 90 days. And if you're in a probate situation, you would just X that box right there that you see that I circled in red, exit probate. Okay, all right, and then you put in your commission. Here we go. Compensation, right? Maybe that is the right verbiage. Compensation. Yeah, so you see right there on the screen, the amount of real estate commission is not fixed by law. It's negotiated between seller and broker. Surprise, surprise, right? Nothing changed there. I mean, so compensation to seller's broker. That's you. You're the listing agent. This is purely you now. 3% for you, 2% for you, whatever you negotiate with the seller. Okay, so it's a departure from the old way. The old way was, hey, give me 6%, give me 5%, and I'll share it with the buyer's agent. No more. Welcome to the new way. The new way is, what is the seller paying you, the listing agent? That's it. So for example, if you do 5%, if you do 3% there, or 2.5%, whatever it is that the seller's gonna pay you, they're gonna pay you. Okay, yeah. So right there, 3% only for you. Okay, and if you see the word "and" right there, "and" right here, "and," maybe you put $500 there, $600 there for your TC, for example. Okay. Now, right in the middle below your 3% commission to you, the listing agent, you see that little that I put 1% there. Let's talk about that. Additional compensation to seller broker if buyers unrepresented. So that means that this buyer refuses to sign with any realtors. They just refuse flat out. They don't want to sign with any realtors. They are smart enough. They just want to go directly with the seller. And so I'm not making this up, right? There's a line item that says, hey, if you have a seller that's unrepresented, if you have a buyer who's unrepresented, it's going to be a lot more work for you. So there's a line item that says, hey, seller, pay me an additional 1% more, for example, for dealing with Mr. Know-it-all, Mrs. Know-it-all buyer, right? Who doesn't think he needs representation, but you know, as a listing agent, that's a ton of work. You know that you're going to have to walk him or her through all the forms. There's a line item there for you. Maybe you charge 1%, whatever it is. Okay, so unrepresented buyer. That's what that line is for under item C2. And you would put an X right there, additional compensation to seller, broker, and buyers unrepresented. Okay. As we move down this new RLA, this new listing agreement, as we move down, we come to this section E, right? Section E. We're still on page 1 of 7 of the RLA. Section E, MLS, right? So for example, you would put in CRMLS, which is probably the biggest MLS right there. When you put that there, when you scoot over, so in the middle right there, you're gonna put it into the CRMLS, for example, and to the right of it, you see it says CCAR form MLSA. What is that? That's important. That's important. Let's take a look at that. Well, hold on to that thought. We'll get there. We'll get there in a second. Okay, but that MLS A form is important. It's important. So now page page, and then oh, let's see here. The rest of the page 2, page 3, pretty self-explanatory, okay? What I want to get to, what I want to point out to you is this. Remember that MLSA form that I said was important? Here it is, okay? So the multiple listing service addendum. And if you move down on this page, if you move down, you see why I put in red the word concession? Concession. You want to probably, if the seller has sold home before, if the seller says, come on, I want to give a concession. I want to do it. I want to give whatever, 2%, 2.5% to the buyer's agent. So you go over this form with your seller, this MLSA, multiple listing service addendum, you go over with your seller, and specifically, perhaps you tell your seller, hey, there's a line item in this new form where, seller, if you tell me, as your listing agent, if you tell me that you're willing to give a concession, then you're going to put an X right here. The default is no concession. So remember that, it's very important. If you don't affirmatively put an X where you see on the screen, you see the word concession, I put it in red for you so you can see it. If you don't affirmatively X that box, the default is no concession. And then when you go and fill out your MLS, there's going to be a field, right? That's going to say concession or not. You're going to have to mark no if you did not affirmatively put an X right there. Okay. All right. So let's say if your seller flat out says, I want to do it. I want to do a concession, right? I want incentivize. I want to sell this home quickly. Time versus money. I don't have time to wait around. I want to sell this thing ASAP. Give a concession. I want to sweeten the pot. I want buyer's agent to show, incentivize. I want to help out the buyer to compensate the buyer's agent. So if you affirmatively X this box right here, seller authorized broker to put in the MLS that seller is willing to consider asking for concession. Okay. So for example, if you were to put an X right there, then you go back to page. You go back to page, what page is it? You go back to page 2 of 7 of the RLA. You go back to page 2 of 7. And under item K, additional item under K, that's where you would put your concession. If the seller, after you explain everything to them, after it's, fully negotiated, after they are fully aware, hey, I'm only paying you only, listing agent. Hey, but I understand how the marketplace operates. I want to give a concession. If that's the case, then after you go over with them the MLSA form, you put a check mark under 5B2, then you come here under additional item K, then you would do your concession there. Okay. All right. So that is kind of the gist of the RLA. Okay. Now that's, as a lawyer, that's my interpretation of it. You all belong to a brokerage. Go over with your broker how he or she wants to handle different sees how he or she wants to handle their operation. But this is how I see the form flowing. If I am the probate attorney and you're handling that particular listing for the personal representative, that's how I would want to, that's how I would be able to defend it in the probate court so that things are moved smoothly. Okay, so so that's the RLA. If you are in a probate setting, obviously you would have a probate listing addendum as well, okay? A probate listing addendum, it looks just like that, revised form as well. So now the next thing is, let us go over now. So we just went over the seller side, the listing agent. Now let's go over the buyer side, okay? The buyer side. So probably, right, one of the huge must know from all this is before you show a house to a buyer, please have them sign this form you see in front of you. The buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. This is where, remember how in the listing agreement, the compensation there is purely for the listing agent, nothing for you, buyer's agent. Here is the buyer's agent compensation. Here it is. So here is where you fully negotiate, what the buyer is willing to pay you. Okay, so that's where you negotiate with the buyer what they're willing to pay you. So very, very important, before you show a house, if you want to get paid as the buyer's agent, have them sign this form. Okay. So on the screen is the buyer representation that your buyer is going to sign. That says, so it's in a grid format, for example, of all the terms. So for example, representation period is only good for not to exceed 3 months. Okay, so you put in there beginning and ending. Put it in beginning and ending. Next, very important, the type of representation. I put a big circle. I put a huge circle. This form is automatically default to non-exclusive. I can see whoever I want. I can date whoever I want. We are in a, what is it, non-monogamous relationship. Yeah. We're just friends with benefit. I'm not in a committed relationship with you, yo. Sorry. So, right? So before you spend all your time and effort showing all these houses, maybe you deserve a little bit better. Maybe you ask, come on, buyer, right? Let's do exclusive. All right, let's commit. So I just want to point out to you, okay, the default on this form is non-exclusive. Buyer, it's not exclusive. But if they check exclusive, then it's just you representing that buyer, okay? Fruits for thoughts, right? Ask your broker whether, perhaps you should check exclusive just so that you have a little more commitment, right? Since you're running around doing all types of reports showing the buyer, maybe some loyalty, buyer. How about we do exclusive? Okay, very important on this form, right? So if you think you don't want to work for free, you want to have some assurance, maybe exclusive is the affirmative way to do it, and it needs an affirmative check mark. It says exclusive. Okay. Now, and then very important, buyer's agent, how much are you going to get paid? How much? This is where you put it. On the screen, right in the middle, where I put a huge red circle, for example. What is it? 3%? What is it? 2.5%? What is it? 2? Whatever you and the buyer agree upon. You put that percentage in there. You put that percentage in there. Okay? Word to the wise. Don't put 1% because you just want to get this thing signed. You put in 1%. Oh, let me just put in 1%, have the buyer sign it. And if the seller is willing to pay 2 more, then yay for me. No. Whatever you put in here is the maximum. So if you put in 1, hoping that the seller would kick in 2, no. This is the maximum you're gonna get from that transaction. So if you put in 3 and the seller's concession is only 2, you can move down. So probably good business sense, you know, to put whatever you deserve, put whatever you negotiated upon. Okay. All right. So this form, very, very important for buyer's agent going forward. Okay. Going forward. All right. So let's say you have this thing. Let's say you get this thing. Let's say you have this buyer representation form signed. Yay. Great. Exclusive. Yay. You show the house, and now you are you're going to write an offer. You're going to write an offer. Now you're going to write an offer. All right. So you're going to write an offer. Welcome to the new California Residential Purchase Agreement and Joint Escrow Instruction. As you see here in front of you, revised form, July 2024. Brand new. Okay. All right. So there. This is where you do your purchase agreement. Okay. You all know how to do this. Fill it in. The new purchase agreement. Fill it in. This is now in red. Item G3 in red, this is where you put if it's negotiated upon. See, that's what this lawsuit is all about. Antitrust, price fixing, right? So here's where we say, hey, everybody is going to negotiate their compensation, right? So for you, for example, your buyer is having you write an offer. So you would, and most buyer are probably cash crunch, right? So perhaps the buyer actually checked this box that says, hey, seller agreed to pay the obligation of buyer to compensate buyer's broker under a separate agreement, SPBB, and we'll get to that form. But in your purchase agreement, you should perhaps X that box if your buyer wants you to seek compensation, see if the seller is willing to kick in some money to pay you, the buyer's agent. Yeah, so for example, you would check that box. Check that box, okay? It defaults to nothing. So you want to affirmatively check that box. Okay, so when you check that box, what happened is when you check that box, it makes reference to the SPBB form. What is that? It makes reference to this form right here. It makes reference to the seller payment to brokers, seller's payment to a buyer's broker. Okay. All right. This is a very important form. So this form basically says, hey, you see why I put 3% in red right there? For example, negotiated upon, it's your fair It's what you deserve. It's what's been negotiated with the buyer. 3% to pay to you, buyer's agent. So you put 3% there. And what you're asking the seller to do is, if you look at this, it says seller payment to buyer's broker. And it says seller agrees to pay buyer's broker 3% of the purchase price. So you put 3% there. Okay? So this form is very important. Seller payment to buyer's broker. Now, critical. This form doesn't mean anything. This form is no good. This form is no good if there is no buyer representation agreement. Then seller has no obligation to pay. Let's say you show a house. Let's say you show a house, buyer loves it, you are feeling great, and everybody's excited, and the buyer says, go write the offer right now. Let's go to Starbucks. Let's sit down. Let's write the offer right now. You get excited. You write the offer, but you forgot to do this buyer representation form. You forgot to have the buyer sign this. Then even though you have this agreement with the seller to pay you, buyer's agent, 3%, it's no good because this form says it right here. This form says, hey, yeah, even though we have a deal from the seller to pay buyer's broker 3%, this is null and void because there's no buyer representation agreement. So all I'm saying to you is, before you show a house, just get your buyer to sign what they need to sign, okay? Which is the buyer representation, agreeing to pay you 3%. You do that first. You write the offer. And if the buyer wants the seller to chip in some money via concession toward buyer's agent, you fill out this form. Seller payment to buyer's broker. You put in 3% there, okay? All right, so, and then if you were writing if you were in a probate transaction, let's say, for example, you're in a probate transaction, you're writing an offer on a probate transaction, what is going to be is you'll have your you'll have your purchase agreement, but then also don't forget this form that goes with a probate purchase agreement, the probate advisory. Okay. All right. So these are some of the new forms that are out there. You know, I am not a realtor. Just wanted to share these forms with you. I've had questions from realtor saying, hey, I'm in a probate transaction. How do I fill out these new forms? This is how you do it. Okay, so these are the new form that CAR just dropped July 2024 for you to use. Okay, so let's just complete our let's say you are in a probate transaction, for example. Let's just complete that. Okay, let me just walk you through. So let's say, for example, let's say mom died. Mom has no trust, so goes to probate. So on the screen is a terrific California probate process diagram. Probate takes 1 year to complete. So I just want to remind you that, hey, in a probate situation, a probate is either going to be full authority or limited authority. If it's full authority, all you need is to give escrow 3 documents. Only 3, that's it, it's very simple, okay? Let me show you what those look like. So for example, if you're in a probate listing situation and it's full authority, on the screen, you see where it says full authority probate, you would do order for probate, you give escrow the order for probate, and then another form called letters and another form called notice of proposed action, okay? All right, so this is probably a pretty good chart for you to maybe take a picture of if you're ever in a probate transaction and it's full authority. You would focus your eye under full authority right there. 3 forms to submit to escrow, which is order for probate letters. Once you get those 2 forms from a probate attorney, then you give the probate attorney the accepted offer, the form we went over earlier. And then he would draft the notice of proposed action, notifying all the heirs the house is going to be sold. 15 days later, you close escrow. That's how simple a probate, that's how you navigate a probate listing with full authority. Okay, so one more time, I want to remind you that in California these days, probate takes at least 1 year to complete, okay? But I want to let you know that even though the probate has not been completed yet, it takes a year to complete, you're able, because of the court traffic and all that, take at least a year to complete. I want to let you know that you're able to close this probate escrow transaction, say in about 3 months, okay? These days, the court are slow. So if you look on the screen, to get the order for probate letters, it's probably going to take about 3 months. And then maybe another 30 days to close escrow, okay? So officially, once that son, that daughter, the personal representative, receive order, receive letter, then you can go ahead, accept an offer, give it to the probate attorney, and then he can go ahead and generate the notice of proposed action, mail it out, and then he gives that 3 form, order for probate letters, and a notice of proposed action to escrow. He gives it to you, you give it to escrow, and that's it, you're done. You can close your probate transaction, say between 3 to 4 months, even though the probate takes a year, 2 years, 3 years to complete. Okay,